What is up, everybody, and welcome back to the driveway, where this week we're dealing with yet another member of today's ever-expanding compact crossover craze. This week our friends at Toyota have sent us over the new 2018 CHR. So let's get to it, and as always, our walkthrough today begins with a talk about performance. Now, the CHR that we've got this week is the top-of-the-line XLE Premium, one of only two trims available for the 2018 model year. However, under the skin, you'll only find one powertrain spread across both models. The engine is a 2-liter double-overhead cam 16-valve 4-cylinder with Toyota's direct fuel injection and their Valvematic variable valve timing. In the CHR, it makes 144 horsepower and 139 pound-feet of torque. It's connected to an electronically controlled CVT, or continuously variable automatic transmission, with Toyota's intelligence and manual shift mode. For 2018, the CHR was only available in front-wheel drive. However, Toyota says for 2019, the CHR will then be having all-wheel drive added to the mixture. As far as the 2018 CHR's fuel economy, expect a range of 27 miles per gallon in the city and 31 miles per gallon on the interstate highway for both the XLE and XLE Premium. Now, as you would expect from a top-of-the-line model, our CHR today does carry Toyota's keyless access system with push-button start on board as standard equipment. Now, as far as the fob itself, it's nice and light in your hands, and it is actually very pocket-sized as well. And one of the things I love is the cool little CHR logo that the company has put here in this nice little gloss black piece here on the back of the fob. On the front of it, you do have all of your basic functions, lock, unlock, and also the panic function, but no button to even release the rear tailgate. There's no power tailgate even as an option on this vehicle, but it would have been nice to maybe see something to just release the trunk itself, but that's not really a big issue. But being the fact it's keyless, all you have to do is have the key fob anywhere within the vehicle, then simply put your foot on the brake pedal, hit the button on the dashboard, and now, it's certainly no surprise that car designers these days are getting more and more ambitious with every single new model that they produce. And for Toyota, the CHR is certainly no different. However, one of the things that sort of lets it down is the fact that even though its price tag is pretty reasonable at about $27,000 as tested here, its features list doesn't necessarily justify its slightly more affordable price tag. Now, while the CHR's features list is not exactly the shortest one in the industry, it certainly is not the most modern one by today's compact crossover standards, and that's pretty apparent by just looking here at the front. Now, I did want to make mention I love the headlight design. It reminds me kind of like the current generation RAV4, but just kind of blown up a little bit with all kinds of chrome accents and cool stuff on the inside. A very, very modern look nonetheless. But it's sort of let down a bit by the fact that the CHR in XLE and XLE Premium trims only comes with automatic halogen headlights. There are no bi-xenon, no LED headlights as even an available upgrade, just the standard halogen units. Now, these do come available with the auto high beam assist as part of the standard Toyota safety sense on both the XLE and XLE Premium. On the inside here, we do have the tri-LED standard automatic daytime running lights. Again, those are standard across both trims. However, only on the XLE Premium will you find the fog lights as located down here below. Now, as far as the front fascia, it's a pretty open-faced front fascia with a nice big large painted piece here in the middle. And again, the design reminds me very much of the current generation RAV4. Definitely not a bad design to go off of, considering the fact that the RAV4 is a pretty popular crossover in and of itself. Now, as I've said many times before, what you're rolling on certainly does matter, especially with a vehicle as unique looking as the CHR. And the wheel and tire design here certainly does deliver in terms of eye candy. On both the XLE and XLE Premium trims, as I said before, you have a set of 18-inch machine-faced and painted Vortex design aluminum alloy wheels. Now, I really do like the design. I like how the black offsets the silver here, and I really do love the contrasting that it does with the ruby flare pearl exterior on my tester here. Now, underneath we do have a pretty modern setup. We have ventilated disc brakes in the front and solid disc brakes in the rear, with a McPherson independent suspension in the front with coil springs and a double wishbone multi-link independent suspension setup in the rear. Now, out of all the features on my tester this week, perhaps the most unique is the availability of a color contrasting roof. Now, this is a part of the R code paint option at an additional cost of $500, and it's only available with 3 distinct exterior colors. You have Ruby Flare Pearl, which I have here today. You also have Eclipse Blue and the very unique Radiant Green, which is more so like a teal color rather than a true green. Now, continuing on down the sides, there are a few more upgrades for the XLE Premium trim specifically, including the now power folding exterior mirrors, which also include the LED turn signals here on the side, and also unlock responsive puddle lamps, which when you unlock the vehicle will project the CHR logo on the ground just behind the front wheels. Moving along down the sides, we also do have a standard blind spot monitoring system here for the XLE Premium trim specifically, and also, as I mentioned before, we do also now have a standard keyless access system with push button start. Now, to lock the vehicle, you simply hit the ribbed pattern here on either of the front door handles, and to unlock, you simply grab the handle as normal, and there's a little touchpad on the back. Now, moving along down the sides and towards the CHR's rear end, again, the funkiness just seems to continue because, unlike the front door handles, which are mounted in a seemingly normal area, the CHR now has the rear door handles integrated up into the rear C-pillars here. So as you can see, instead of in their normal position, which would maybe be about here, they're instead up here on the top. It was a little bit confusing for certain people that we showed this car to, but in the end, it still does mean that the CHR just gets quirkier and quirkier as you go along. Now, as you look at the CHR from the rear, again, the design is just as weird and youthful looking as it is up in the front. For starters, the taillights, this weird boomerang style design with the reflector part at least extending all the way down the rear quarter panel here. Now, these are standard halogen lights, no LED or anything like that. And also, we do have a few other little standard features such as a backup camera, which does not include any sort of rear parking sensors, as you can see along the rear bumper here. However, in addition to that blind spot monitoring system that I mentioned earlier, we now also have a standard rear cross traffic alert system for this XLE Premium. Now, climbing inside the CHR's interior, the first thing that strikes you is that while the exterior is extremely flashy and certainly eye-catching in a lot of ways, the interior doesn't exactly seem to portray the same image. I mean, sure, you can see that Toyota has tried to design the interior to look as futuristic as the exterior does, but the main thing that really puts it off is the fact that, like I was saying before, the features list is quite short, especially for a top-end model like this one, and you'll see what I mean as we go throughout. But starting things off here directly in front of the driver, we do have a 3-spoke leather-trimmed multi-function steering wheel with all of the typical controls for all of the electronic creature comforts throughout the interior. Things like the hands-free radio controls and Bluetooth connectivity with voice recognition over here on the left-hand side. But then moving over here to the right, the majority of the buttons are for the smaller thin film transistor display up there in the gauge cluster, but you also have buttons for part of the standard Toyota Safety Sense systems. The button over here on the right controls the dynamic radar cruise control, and specifically it is for the distance control when the radar cruise control is active. It allows you to set the specific distance in which you want to be within the car in front of you, and you also have the button for the lane departure warning with active steering assist. Down below that, you also have the standard cruise control functions through the little stalk just out of the lower right hand corner of the steering column, and that seems to be quite the common feature with a lot of Toyota cars these days, and it certainly is no exception here with the CHR. CHR. Now looking at the gauge cluster for just a second, we do have a rather simplistic setup with things like your tachometer, speedometer, and of course your temperature and fuel gauge, but of course all the relevant information is stored right there in that thin film transistor display. Now you do have quite a lot of information, and you can go both up and down, but also left and right to vary between different screens. Right now we have it set to our range screen as well as the average miles per hour. And speaking of range, one thing I did want to mention that I'm not so happy about is the range of this vehicle. Even with a rating of 27 in the city and 31 on the highway, we only managed a range of about 250 miles or so, which in my book is rather appalling considering some of its competitors can get almost double that as far as their fuel economy and still get about the same rating from the EPA. So we keep on going through these information displays, and we do have things such as the economy indicator, your digital speedometer and range, but you also have other fun things such as your G monitor and also a driver assist. So let's say you're taking a long road trip and you've been on the road for a good bit of time. This is a good little indicator to tell you when it is a good time to take a rest. A very useful information piece for anybody who likes to take long road trips such as myself. Keep on going, and you have this little blank screen at the bottom, which I found rather amusing, but you go back to the main screen and of course you can see things such as your average and active fuel economy, and also things such as your gear selection, outside temperature, and your typical odometer. But scrolling to the right and left also gives you a lot of other relevant information, such as the indicator for the lane departure warning system with the active steering assist. So you can see on the left and the right you do have the bars indicating which direction you are drifting out of your lane. But you also have other things such as vehicle service messages, and then you get to a very interesting screen which allows you to toggle through some of the safety systems as well as a drive mode select. Now I'm not exactly sure why Toyota didn't just put a button in the interior to activate, a sport mode or the eco mode, or just keep it in the normal mode like we have it now. Those are the three driving modes in which you can scroll through, by the way. But you also have other icons such as turning on or off the lane departure warning, the pre-collision warning system with pedestrian detection, and also the blind spot monitoring system, all of which, like I said, are part of the standard Toyota safety sense. But the drive mode select is pretty interesting. You can go into it, and as I said, you've got three different modes. You've got eco, normal, and sport, all of which will alter things such as your throttle mapping, shift timing, and so on, like you would find in a lot of its competition. Now moving on to the subjects of infotainment and also entertainment, both the XLE and XLE Premium that I have here both feature the 7-inch color touchscreen display system, which one would normally expect would carry things like Toyota's Entune application system with applicable things like navigation. But unfortunately, I'm sad to report that even on this top-of-the-line model that I have here, we don't have either of those features at our disposal. Now we do have the typical things such as AM and FM radio, AHA internet radio, USB and iPod auxiliary inputs, and also Bluetooth media connectivity and media streaming, but I'm really sad to see that there's no navigation system in here or anything like that, and this is especially troubling considering the fact that most of its competition, which only costs either a couple $1,000s less or perhaps maybe just a couple grand more, would also offer navigation as an available option or a standard feature. So again, it just seems like Toyota needs to take a little bit more time and add a few more features here to the CHR's list in order to make this vehicle a lot more competitive. Now, another area where I think the competition has the upper hand is in the term of the audio system. Now, you do have a standard 6-speaker stereo system in here, no big names or anything like that, and that goes for both the XLE and the XLE Premium, and it does provide a pretty decent sound when you have the radio in the right setting. So like I said, it's not the biggest brand name stereo in the business, and it's certainly not the most powerful one I've ever heard, but on that same token, it definitely is pretty decent for what it is. And one of the ways you can actually improve the sound experience in here is just by simply going through the sound menu. Now that of course allows you to toggle things such as your treble, mid-level, and bass, but in this car it also comes with its own equalizer. And it does provide different modes. We have it in the powerful mode right now, but you have vocal, natural, and powerful, all of which will tamper things such as the bass level, the treble level, and pretty much everything else to provide a different sound experience with each level. Now, with the powerful experience, the bass is definitely apparent. However, the sound system seems to suffer a little bit with higher bassy kind of songs. So if you want to provide a nice powerful experience, I suggest turning the bass down just a little bit unless you really want to blow your speakers out. Now, moving beneath the infotainment center, we get to the rather simplistic setup for the dual zone automated climate control system that, again, like a lot of other features here, is standard on both the XLE and the XLE Premium. You can kind of see the theme that Toyota is going with here. Now, one thing that I love about the system is, first off, it is in very close proximity to the steering wheel, so it really doesn't take too much effort to reach over and change your temperature, rather than reaching down way beneath the center console to some hidden dual zone system that takes a rocket scientist to figure it all out. Everything from the temperature and the fan speed controls and even the climate zone controls in the middle via those little triggers are all very clearly labeled and very easy to read, and the same can be said for all the other buttons and controls throughout the system. Now, as far as the controls themselves, you can synchronize these temperatures by either independently, or you can synchronize them both to work at the same time, all done through the sync function on the far right hand side of the system. So I have it on right now. As you can see, when the temperature goes down, the other one goes down along with it. Turn it off, and as you can see, they now suddenly work independently. So I've always admired the dual zone systems and how you can tailor the air conditioning just so for both the driver and passenger. As far as everything else, you do have your front and rear defrost over here, the automatic function, as well as the button to turn the system off. And then over here you have your air conditioning recycling, the AC economy mode, so it kind of maintains the temperature and the fan speed at the most fuel efficient level, if you can call it that. And you also again have the button for synchronization and so on and so forth. And here in my XLE Premium, we also have 3-stage heated front seats as part of the XLE Premium package. Moving on down below, we do have a few other little things down here. You have a nice sized little cubby there right at the front and center. It's about as big as one of today's sort of average size smartphones. It's not the biggest thing in the world by any means, but then just next to it, of course, you do have the iPod auxiliary and USB inputs. Now, one of the stranger things here in the center console is the positioning of the front cup holder. As you can see, it's directly here in front of the shifter, and it really isn't much bigger than, say, the water bottle that I have sitting in there right now. And one of the cool things, though, is the fact that if I take this out for just a second, you can see it does have these little latches which will actually latch onto whatever drink is put in there, and it actually is quite deep. I've actually been able to fit a full-size large soft drink right there in that front cup holder, so it is quite sizable. But if you have something larger, be prepared to maybe spill a little bit or something, as it is a little difficult to clear the lower part of this portion here where the climate controls are housed. Now, moving behind that front cup holder, we get to the selector for the CVT-IS, or as I said before, this is the continuously variable automatic transmission with Toyota's intelligence and manual shift mode. Now, I'll be honest in saying I am not a fan of CVTs by any stretch of the imagination. I'm really not a fan of the way they drive, and I just think that with this one, it's like driving something attached to a rubber band. But as far as the selector itself, I actually do like it. I like the nice little bit of shiny silver up there with the leather wrapping for the shift boot down below. Now, one of the interesting things about this transmission is when you put it in any gear other than park, the electronic parking brake, which is standard here on my XLE Premium, automatically turns off. But the moment you put it back in park, the electronic parking brake automatically engages. Now, speaking of that parking brake, if you want to just turn it off manually, all you have to do is keep your foot on the brake, push the trigger forward. You'll hear it release. And then to turn it back on, all you have to do is pull it up, and now your parking brake is set. Now, on another note, this vehicle does have a rear view camera, but it's not in the typical place where you would expect. Most people would expect it to appear up here on the touchscreen display, but instead, in a weird twist, the moment I put the car in reverse, you'll notice that it actually appears up here on the auto-dimming rear view mirror. Now, that to me is just annoying because I would actually expect to be looking down here a little bit more in my line of sight, but then again, that also is from a safety perspective because a driver should check their rear view mirror before before actually backing up, and the rear view camera is directly in their line of sight when they go to use it. So all in all, it's a bit of a hit and miss situation with the rear view camera, but overall, it's not exactly the worst thing I've ever tested in the world. Now moving back from the shift selector, we do have yet another cup holder, but this one is yet a little bit more unique than the one up there in the front, in the fact that you can actually remove the bottom of it with this little piece here with these two little holes, thus increasing the size and depth in which you can fit something in the cup holder. Now, if you want to fit that large soft drink that I was talking about before in here, that is definitely not a problem. There's more than enough space, and it still is able to clear the center console with relative ease. Now, speaking of the center console, it is rather deep. You do have quite a lot of space down in here. You also do have a 12-volt 120-watt outlet located there front and center, and overall a decent place to store all your stuff with a nice leather-bound surface across the top. Now looking up top for just a second, you probably have already seen that there is one big feature missing from this top of the line model. But just a couple of other features. We do also have the auto dimming rear view mirror as well as your overhead lighting and a very interesting design to the headliner. But you'll also notice that missing from this top of the line model and missing from the options list entirely is any form of a sunroof. That is one thing that I wish Toyota had integrated at least on this top end XLE Premium. Now why they didn't include a sunroof, I'm not sure, but considering the fact you can actually get a sunroof on some of the lower priced competition, even as an available option, still means that the CHR is a little bit behind when it comes to the upper end premium features. Now, being the fact that the CHR is a compact crossover, you would expect that the rear legroom would be rather subpar in terms of crossovers in general, but I'm happy to report that even at 6'1", I'm sitting bolt upright here in the back seat, and I actually do have a slight bit of legroom between the back of the seat and the front of my knees. Now, keep in mind, I am 6'1", and I do have the driver's seat where I would have it if I was driving the vehicle, so it's nice to see that Toyota actually thought of taller folks when it came to designing the rear area. Now, the rear seats in the CHR are 60/40 split fold, and all you have to do is just pull the little triggers on either of the upper corners of each of the seats in order to release them. Now, you don't get any form of a center cup holder or even a center armrest. Instead, the cup holders are now located over here on the doors, and also conveniently, rear occupants also have fully automatic windows, just like the occupants do in the front. Now, should you want to throw a bunch of stuff in the back, the CHR is more than accommodable to at least hold a few little pieces of luggage or perhaps a sizable grocery trip at the same time. Looking in through the back hatch, you're looking at 19 cubic feet of space to start, but fold down the 60/40 seats and that suddenly extends to 36.4 cubic feet of space. Now, what I love about this is also the fact that the floor is rather low, so you don't actually have to heft something up a rather large height in order to get it into the back. But overall, it's a pretty class competitive space, but at the same time, it still feels a little bit small when put up against its competition. Now, of course, you can't talk about a crossover without giving a nod towards the safety side of things. And while the CHR that I have this week has not provided me with any sort of crash test data to give you, I can tell you that with the Toyota Safety Sense systems on board as standard, it definitely will give buyers much more peace of mind. Now, I did go over the Safety Sense systems throughout this review, but just to touch on them again, here on the XLE Premium, we do have things such as the standard blind spot monitoring, the lane departure alert with active steering assist, the forward collision warning with pedestrian detection, and also the dynamic radar cruise control, just to name a few. Now, with all that in place as standard, I really do think that that gives the CHR just a little bit of an edge over the competition, which normally would make you pay extra for such features. But overall, I'm very happy to say that the CHR is still a very nice entry into the compact crossover lineup. Sure, it needs a good few features in order to be competitive in that aspect, but still, as far as a vehicle that provides a nice, quiet, comfortable driving experience and can still get you very safely and reliable from A to B, the CHR is still a very viable option when it comes to a compact crossover. And unfortunately, on that note, everybody, our time here with the 2018 Toyota CHR has now unfortunately drawn to a close. I do hope everybody's enjoyed this review as much as I've had fun making it for y'all. Now, if you guys like what you see, please do give this video a thumbs up, and also be sure to click that subscribe button down below for many more videos like this and more to come in the future. But in the end, a huge thanks goes out to our friends at Toyota for allowing us the access to this vehicle for an entire week of fun-filled testing. But in the end, guys, I hope you you enjoyed the review, and I will see y'all next time. Take care, everybody, and stay safe.